Tonight, we drift back, not just decades, but centuries, to a morning in the Silla kingdom in the early 600s. Long before power lines or pavement, before satellites, and before cities. Back when most of the world was quiet enough to notice a change in the wind or a flicker in the flame. The temple stood on a ridge overlooking low green valleys in what today is southeastern Korea. Jeonju, now a city, was once the heart of the Silla kingdom. Back then, it was pine trees, mountains, and winding dirt paths. The kind of quiet that lets you hear candles' flames shift. And on one particular morning, something unusual appeared above that quiet world. They described it as a disk, silver, silent, floating just above the monastery roof. No light, no heat, but every candle in the temple flickered at once. And for reasons no one ever quite explained, every monk stopped chanting at the exact same moment. They didn't run, they didn't panic, they simply looked up. Silla was one of the three kingdoms of ancient Korea, deeply spiritual society shaped by Buddhism and ritual. Temples were built high in the hills, where fog touched the rooftops and the sound of bells carried for miles. Mornings began in near darkness, lit only by handmade candles and the steady breath of monks in meditation. Monks would gather before sunrise, seated on woven mats, back straight, voices low. Some days the valley would still be asleep, a soft blanket of mist clinging to the stones, birds not yet stirring in the trees. And it was during one of these mornings that the disk appeared. It wasn't bright, it wasn't glowing, just a shape, perfectly round, unmoving, and silent. It hovered above the monastery roof, tilted just slightly, as if observing. Witnesses call it baekgyung, white mirror, phrase used in ancient Korean astronomy for celestial anomalies. But this wasn't a star. It didn't move with the sky. It didn't fade when the sun came up. It just lingered. We don't have drawings, no sketches, no paintings. But what survived were records, temple logs, personal writings. One note from a monk named Haejin reads simply, "At the moment of stillness, the disk was above us. We breathed together, and the fire bent sideways." No one described fear, only stillness, collective sense that something was near, not violent, not divine, just other. The monks didn't call it God. They didn't worship it. They didn't write it into any scrolls of prophecy. They watched, then they bowed their heads, and when the sun rose behind the disk, slowly receded, fading upward into the morning sky. Roughly 30 years later, in a different province, a royal astronomer recorded a nearly identical sighting. Same shape, same size, same motion, or the lack of it. Silver disk, seen at dawn, with no sound and no explanation. It was logged in the scroll of seasonal observations, a kind of weather almanac kept by royal scholars. Not a miracle, not a warning, just noted. Similar accounts drift through records in nearby dynasties. Some in Chinese texts describe floating wheels. Others in Buddhist writings mention silent clouds with metal eyes. Always above, always watching, and never staying. Detail most often repeated in oral accounts wasn't the shape or size. It was the candles. Every flame in the temple reportedly flickered, dimmed, then returned at the exact same moment. There was no wind and no tremor, nothing visible that could have caused it, and yet each candle behaved as if moved by a breath, not blown out, just paused. Haejin's journal mentions this more than once. The flame bent low, as though pulled, but no one moved, not even the air. That line has puzzled historians for decades. Some say it suggests a magnetic field destruction. Others believe it was a metaphor, a poetic image meant to convey unease. But for those who believe the event was real, not symbolic, it raises a simple question. What could make every candle in a stone temple react at once? Just before full sunrise, the disc began to move. It didn't shoot upward, didn't vanish. It ascended, slowly and smoothly, as though being pulled by something beyond the sky. One monk wrote, "It left with the pace of a breath drawn in." And when it was gone, the monks resumed their prayers. The day continued, and nothing else happened. There were no storms, no fires, no revelations, just peace, and the quiet knowledge that something strange had passed overhead. Centuries later, when temple historians compile events of spiritual significance, the silver disc made the cut, but barely. It wasn't marked as miraculous. It wasn't canonized into legend. It was included as a sky note, the equivalent of an asterisk in a very old book. And maybe that's what makes it so interesting. It wasn't dramatized. It wasn't mythologized. It was simply observed, written down quietly by people who were trained to notice small changes in the world around them and say only what they saw. So what was it? A mirage? A weather trick? Something ancient and explainable, or something that slipped through? We don't know. We probably won't ever know. But the fact that they noticed it calmly, without panic, says something about who they were, and maybe something about what they saw. That's it for now. Another long stretch behind us. Until next time, this was the Rest Stop Files.